The Twilight Cactus Motel perched like a weary traveler on the edge of Route 66, its neon sign blinking in the dark, a jagged cactus outlined in coral and turquoise against the vast desert sky. The air was thick with the scent of dry sage and the faint tang of diesel, stirred by a wind that hummed through the mesquite like a forgotten lullaby. I stood in the doorway of room 7, my cigarette glowing faintly, its ember a tiny spark against the endless night. A truck roared past on the highway, its headlights slicing through the darkness before fading into the distance, leaving behind a low rumble that settled into my chest. I exhaled, watching the smoke curl upward, twisting like a ghost under the stars I'd never bothered to name. My name's Elise. I'm telling you this because some nights are like photographs, frozen moments that hold you captive, no matter how hard you try to let them go. That night was one of those. It was late July, the kind of heat that lingers like a sigh, pressing against your skin even after the sun has surrendered. I'd been working this road for 4 years, from Texas to Arizona, each motel a fleeting shelter, each room a stage for someone else's escape. I was good at it, good at being what they needed, good at keeping my heart tucked away where no one could find it. But that night wasn't about what I was good at. It was about him, and the way he made me want to hold on to something I'd long since let go. I flicked my cigarette to the gravel, crushing it under the heel of my worn sandals. The motel's office light glowed dimly across the lot, where Hank, the night clerk, was probably hunched over his old radio, cursing the static. I adjusted my dress, lavender, frayed at the edges, clinging just enough to do the job, and checked my phone. 10:03 p.m. He was late, but not by much. His text had come through earlier, brief and almost hesitant, room 7, 10 p.m. Just you and me. No name, no details, just a quiet request that felt like it carried a hidden weight. I'd been in this game long enough to know that meant something, maybe a story, maybe a man trying to outrun one. I stepped back inside, the door groaning shut, sealing me in with the stale air and the ghosts of nights I tried to forget. Room 7 was like every other motel room on this road, faded wallpaper with a faint floral pattern, a bed that creaked like it was tired of secrets, and a lamp casting a warm, honeyed glow that softened the room's sharp edges. The curtains were thin, beige, swaying slightly as the desert wind slipped through a crack in the window. The air smelled of old smoke and time, a scent that clung to everything, including me. I sat on the edge of the bed, catching my reflection in the chipped mirror across the room. My auburn hair was loose, falling in soft curls around my shoulders, and my green eyes stared back, sharp but tired, holding stories I'd never share. Not even with you. I lit another cigarette, the match's flame flaring briefly before settling. The clock on the nightstand read 10:06. Waiting always stirred memories I'd rather keep buried, like sand blown across the road. I thought about my best friend, Mara, her laugh bright as sunlight, promising we'd travel the world together. I thought about the night she left for college, her car packed with dreams I couldn't follow. I thought about my first night working this job, 22 and desperate, promising myself it was just until I could afford a ticket out of this life. That was 4 years ago, and the road had a way of making promises feel like dust. A soft knock at the door pulled me back, my heart skipping, not from fear, but from something alive, something I couldn't name. I stood, smoothing my dress, and crossed the room, my sandals clicking on the linoleum. I opened the door, and there he was. He stood in the doorway, framed by the neon cactus's glow, his face half hidden in shadow. He was lean, not tall, with a faded denim jacket and hair the color of rust, tousled like he'd been caught in a storm. His eyes were gray, deep and restless, like clouds before rain, carrying a weight I couldn't read. He didn't smile, didn't speak, just looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Like he was seeing past the dress, the makeup, the walls I'd built to survive. You're Elise? His voice was low, steady, with a faint gravel that spoke of long nights and longer roads. I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. You're late. He glanced at the clock as he passed, his boots scuffing softly on the carpet. Got held up. Roads out here twist you around. I closed the door, the latch clicking, and the room felt smaller, the air thicker, like it was holding its breath. He didn't sit, just stood by the window, his hands in his pockets, staring out at the neon sign as it flickered, its hum a steady pulse in the quiet. I watched him, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers twitched slightly, like he was holding on to something he couldn't let go. He wasn't like the others, no easy grin, no rushed agenda, just a stillness that felt like it could shift the stars. Want a drink? I asked, gesturing to the bottle of gin on the dresser. It was cheap, but it served its purpose, filling silences and easing nerves. He shook his head, his eyes still on the window. Not tonight. I sat on the bed, crossing my legs, trying to read him. He was a stranger, and strangers were dangerous in my line of work, too many unknowns, too many ways to get hurt. I lit another cigarette, the smoke curling around me like a shield. You got a name? I asked, expecting him to dodge it. He turned then, his eyes meeting mine, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Wes, he said, the name soft but deliberate, like he'd chosen it for me. I tilted my head, a small smile tugging at my lips. Wes. That real? He smiled back, just a flicker, but it was enough to make my chest ache. Real enough. We sat in silence for a while, the neon sign's hum blending with the distant growl of a truck on the highway. I was used to silences, but this one was different, alive, heavy with things unsaid. I watched his hands, still in his pockets, strong and steady, like they'd held something precious once and never forgotten how. I wondered what they'd touched, what they'd lost. I wondered why I cared. You don't fit here, he said suddenly, his voice cutting through the quiet like a spark in the dark. I laughed, sharp and bitter, the sound echoing in the small room. You don't know me. I know enough. His eyes were on me now, steady, unyielding, like he could see the cracks in my armor. This place, it's not where you're supposed to end up. I wanted to snap back, to tell him he had no right, but his words hit something deep, something I'd buried under years of motel rooms and late nights. I looked away, my throat tight, the cigarette burning low. You don't know where I'm supposed to be. He didn't answer, just watched me, and in that moment, I felt exposed, like he'd peeled back every layer I'd built to survive. I stood, needing to move, needing to break the spell. I walked to the window, pulling the curtain aside, the neon light painting my skin in shades of coral and turquoise. The desert stretched out beyond, vast and unforgiving, and I wondered if it would ever let me go. Why are you here, Wes? I asked, my voice softer than I meant it to be, barely audible over the hum of the sign. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his words were careful, like he was stepping around something fragile. I'm looking for something I can't keep. Thought I might find it here. I turned, leaning against the windowsill, studying him. That's not an answer. He smiled again, that small, fleeting thing that made my heart stumble. It's all I've got. We talked as the night wore on, not about the big things, not about the truths that hung between us, but about the small ones that filled the spaces. He told me about a river in Kentucky where he'd skipped stones as a kid, about a diner in New Mexico with pie so good it felt like home. I told him about the time I'd danced in the rain outside a gas station in Texas, how I'd laughed until my sides ached. We laughed together, and it felt like a gift, like something I hadn't earned. His eyes softened when he looked at me, like he was seeing someone I'd forgotten how to be. Hours passed, the gin untouched. The bed a silent witness to a night that wasn't what I'd expected. He didn't touch me, didn't try, but every glance, every pause, felt more intimate than any touch I'd known. I found myself imagining what it would be like to reach for his hand, to feel the warmth of his skin, to ask him to stay. But I didn't. That wasn't how this worked. As dawn crept through the curtains, painting the room in soft grays, he stood, pulling a small, folded piece of paper from his pocket. He held it out to me, his fingers brushing mine, warm and steady, sending a shiver through me I couldn't explain. "Keep this," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Don't open it yet." I took it, my heart racing. "What's in it?" He didn't answer, just looked at me, his eyes tracing my face like he was memorizing every line. Then he turned and walked out, the door clicking shut, leaving me with the hum of the neon sign and a weight in my hand I didn't understand. I stood there, clutching the paper, my mind a storm of questions. Who was Wes? Why had he come? And what was in that note, burning against my palm like a secret I wasn't sure I could carry? The Twilight Cactus Motel faded into the haze of my memory, but that night clung to me like the scent of rain on the wind. I carried the note in my purse, its edges softening with every day I didn't open it. I told myself I'd forget him, that he was just another drifter passing through, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw his, gray, restless, haunted. I saw the way his hands stayed still, like they were afraid to reach for something they'd lost. I saw the way he looked at me, like I was more than the girl in room 7, more than the life I'd built to survive. Weeks passed, and I kept moving, motel to motel, town to town, the endless ribbon of Route 66 stretching out like a promise I'd stopped believing in. I worked, I smiled, I played the part, but it felt hollower now, like I was wearing someone else's skin. The men I met blurred together, their voices a dull hum against the memory of his. I started to wonder if I'd imagined him, if he was just a flicker of neon light, a dream born from the desert and my own longing. It was mid-August when I saw him again, at a motel called the Desert Whisper, just outside Kingman. The air was cooler now, sharp with the promise of fall, and the neon sign above the motel flickered in a slow, mournful rhythm, casting a soft orange glow over the parking lot. I was outside, leaning against my old Toyota, the metal cold against my back, smoking and watching the stars. The night was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you feel like you're the only person left in the world. I heard his footsteps before I saw him, the crunch of gravel like a heartbeat in the dark. He stepped into the light, same denim jacket, same rusty hair falling over his eyes. He didn't look surprised to see me, like he'd known I'd be here, like the road had pulled us back together. "Elise," he said, my name soft and heavy, like it carried a weight I couldn't see. I straightened, tossing my cigarette to the ground. "Wes." He smiled, that small, fleeting thing that made my chest ache. "You remembered. You're hard to forget." The words slipped out, raw and honest, and I looked away, embarrassed, the neon light painting my cheeks in shades of orange. He stepped closer, stopping just out of reach, his hands in his pockets. The light caught the lines on his face, deeper now, like the road had carved them there. "I didn't mean to find you again," he said, his voice low, almost lost in the wind. "But I'm glad I did." I laughed, unsteady and sharp. "You don't just find someone on this road. You were looking." "Maybe." His eyes met mine, and I felt that same pull, that same sense of being seen, like he could see the girl I'd been before the motels, before the nights that wore me down. Maybe I was. I wanted to ask him why, to demand answers, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I asked, "What do you want, Wes?" He didn't answer right away, just looked at me, his eyes searching, like he was looking for something I didn't know I had. I want you to know you can still hope, he said finally, gesturing at the motel. The road, the life I'd been living. I want you to believe some things don't have to end. I turned away, staring at the highway, the lights of a passing truck blurring into streaks. You don't get to decide what I believe. I'm not deciding. His voice was closer now, and I realized he'd moved, standing just behind me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. I'm just telling you what I see. I turned to face him, my heart pounding, and for a moment, we were all there was, the neon sign, the desert wind, the space between us alive with something I couldn't name. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge that gap, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled the note from my purse, holding it up. What's this, Wes? Why'd you give it to me? He looked at the note, his expression unreadable. It's a reminder, he said. But you have to choose to remember. I laughed, bitter and raw. You don't know what I'm ready for. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine, just for a second, and it was like a spark in the dark, lighting up every nerve in my body. I know you're scared, he said softly. So am I. Before I could respond, he pulled another piece of paper from his pocket, this one smaller, folded tightly. He pressed it into my hand, his fingers lingering against mine, warm and steady. Read this one first, he said. Then decide what to do with the other. I looked down at the paper, my heart racing. What's in it? Hope, he said simply, and then he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the parking lot, leaving me with 2 pieces of paper and 1,000 questions. I stood there, the papers heavy in my hands, the neon sign buzzing above me. I didn't open them, not yet. I was afraid, not of him, but of what he represented. A hope, maybe, that some things could last, even in a life like mine. I sat on the hood of my Toyota again, lighting another cigarette, the stars watching me like they knew something I didn't. The road stretched out before me, endless and uncertain, and I wondered if I'd ever find the courage to follow it. The Desert Whisper Motel was behind me now, but the papers stayed with me, tucked in my purse like secrets I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. I drove west, the road unfolding under my tires, the neon signs blurring into memories. I couldn't shake Wes, his voice, his eyes, the way he'd made me feel like I could still hold on to hope, even after everything. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who danced in the rain with Mara, who believed in forever and happy endings. She was still there, somewhere, buried under years of motels and men, under the weight of choices I couldn't take back. Wes had seen her, somehow, and now he was asking me to find her again, to hold on to something fleeting in a world that took everything. I stopped at a motel called the Horizon's Edge, just inside California. The neon sign was faint, its letters half burned out, casting a soft blue light over the parking lot. I sat in my room, the papers on the nightstand, the lamp's light warm and golden, like a memory. The air smelled of dust and salt, the ocean close now, its rhythm a steady pulse in the distance. I lit a cigarette, the smoke curling toward the ceiling, and stared at the papers, my heart pounding. I picked up the second paper, the one he'd given me at the Desert Whisper. It was small, folded tightly, the edges worn from being carried too long. I unfolded it, my hands shaking, and found a short note, the handwriting steady but hurried, like he'd written it in a moment of desperation. Elise. My name's Wes, but there's more to it than that. I've been running from a life that's slipping away, from moments I can't hold on to. I saw you in room 7, and for the first time in years, I wanted to stay. You're not just a light in the dark, you're the kind of light that makes a man believe some things can last. I don't know if they can, but I need you to know you made me want to hope. The other note is the rest of it. It's not just my story, it's a chance for you to hold on to something real. But it's up to you. Wes. I read it again, my eyes burning, my chest tight. Wes. He'd seen me, really seen me, in a way no one else ever had. I set the note down and reached for the first one, the one from that night at the Twilight Cactus. It felt heavier now, like it carried the weight of both our lives. I opened it, my breath catching, and found a single sentence inside. Find me at the end of the horizon, Elise. I'll be waiting where the road meets the tide. Below it was an address, a cliff overlooking the ocean in a town called Cliff's End, just a few hours away. I stared at it, my mind spinning. He was asking me to follow him, to hold on to hope, to believe that something could last in a life where everything faded. I thought about the road, the motels, the nights that had shaped me. I thought about Mara, how we'd promised to see the world together, and how I'd lost her to time and distance. And I thought about Wes, his quiet strength, the way he'd made me believe I could still hope, even if just for a moment. I packed my bag that night, the notes tucked safely in my purse. The Toyota's engine sputtered to life, and I drove west, the desert giving way to the ocean's salt and spray. The road felt different now, like it was leading me somewhere instead of just away. I thought about Wes every mile, his face sharper in my mind than the neon signs fading behind me. I thought about the life I was leaving, the weight of it falling away with every mile. Cliff's End was a quiet town, the kind of place where the ocean's roar drowned out the world. The address led me to a cliff overlooking the sea, the wind sharp and cold, the waves crashing below like a heartbeat. I parked the Toyota and walked to the edge, my heart pounding, expecting to see him. But he wasn't there. Instead, I found a small stone, etched with a single word, hope. Beside it was a Polaroid photograph, faded and worn, of a man and a woman laughing on a beach, their faces blurred by time. I knew it was him, even without seeing his face clearly. I stood there, the note and the photograph in my hands, the ocean stretching out before me, endless and unforgiving. I realized then that he wasn't coming, that he'd never been coming. Maybe he was gone, lost to the road or to the weight of his own story. Maybe he was a memory, a hope I'd needed to keep going. But as the sun sank into the sea, painting the sky in shades of fire and ash, I felt something settle inside me. I'd come here for him, but I was here for me, too, to face the truth that some things don't last, and that's okay. I didn't let the first note go this time. I kept it, along with the second and the photograph, tucking them into my purse as I walked back to the Toyota. I didn't stay at Cliff's End. I drove on, not knowing where, but carrying that word, hope, with me. The road had brought me to him, and he had reminded me that hope wasn't about holding on forever, but about holding on long enough to keep going. And maybe that was enough.